shitcoin cycle, but it's happening more and more inside of Bitcoin.
John, always good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Another year in Prague. What do you think so far this year?
I think the vibe is a little chiller, but it's definitely been just as fun as last year. Lots of people trying the new app and such.
Yeah.
Cool.
So one big thing right off the bat is that we launched the Freedom Store this weekend, and we are honored to have BitKit there. And also you have PubKey kind of going. You want to talk a little bit? Let's get into that about PubKey. Because Web of Trust is something that we do, and the social graph is so important to us. And so that's why we're kind of friends. So how do you think that it's changing with PubKey and Web of Trust, and what's going on with that?
So the difference, the kind of problem and design approach that we took that's different with Web of Trust than you may have seen in the past is we added basically a generic dimension to it. And so instead of just saying, do I trust them or not, or do I trust them and have I left them a good review, or 5 stars or 4 stars, or these kinds of things. It's that you are choosing who you trust and with what. So you're able to basically tag other keys in the system or tag other URLs in the system to create both a web of trust of people and of data.
So if I understand correctly, because I've been using PubKey, but now I got you here and I can do a little Q&A with you. So when I tag someone, other people can also see how I tag individuals as well.
Yes, everything in PubKey is currently public.
Okay.
There's no privacy aspect to it. It's a public network, but there's no problem with adding any sort of private data layers within it.
Yeah, I know one of the first tags I actually got was WOT Master, and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool, because with Vexel, that's essentially what we tap into is the Web of Trust, and which we leverage that so that you can trade with your friends and friends of friends. And so what do you think the current state of, when you look around, right, as you said, it's a little chiller this year, but I look around and I see a lot of, things that look like banks or stock exchanges, and, what do you feel like the current state of Bitcoin is when it comes to buying and selling?
I think that it's, a little bit of a shame that we're having the same sort of shitcoin cycle, but it's happening more and more inside of Bitcoin. And it just feels like that's the angle they figured out this cycle. It's like, it seems like the way we can intercept liquidity that might be interested in Bitcoin by buying Bitcoin ourselves and reselling it and repackaging it as a product. And this is a very scary, development, in my opinion, a very unhealthy development for the culture, because it's just more about, number go up and more about making Bitcoin into a Ponzi. Other than that, it isn't literally one, it has every other feature of one. Yeah. And that's not why I think you or I are here. I mean, I'm happy to make more money by holding Bitcoin, but I don't really necessarily know if I'm going to be happy with the trade-offs that it takes to get us there.
Yeah, and I mean, just to get into this as well, is like my kind of theme for this weekend is there's a lot of customers in this building, but it's like, are you a Bitcoiner or a customer? And we look at KYC, and that's what it is as Rockstar phrased it, is it's kill your customer, because lately we've had so many attacks and things like this.
Wrench attacks.
Yeah, it's like I like my fingers, and I don't want my information out there that I could put myself at risk for. But when it comes to KYC, how do you feel about buying Bitcoin with your passport and blood type and all of these things as well?
Well, it depends, To each his own. Everybody's in their own place in their life and their own strategy. So I think everything is okay. Like the people that want to trust a institution to buy Bitcoin or an exchange, and that's the way they feel comfortable doing it. They're not performing something evil, particularly if they're just withdrawing the Bitcoin. They're just normal people that pay their taxes and do their thing. But there are obviously a lot of trade-offs with buying your Bitcoin that way. and there are also potential, trade-offs that you may deeply regret. Again, where if the government decides they want to go after anyone they know has Bitcoin, they could find out more easily through centralized providers. And so I personally have done everything I could to not have KYC be part of the products that we make. There's no KYC in BitKit, there's no KYC concept in PubKey. I mean, the network is public, but this is a peer-to-peer thing. It's not where we're collecting data, we're providing it, And so I think that it's important to have options like Vexel, for example, where you can connect with people you trust or people they trust to be able to get KYC Bitcoin or sell KYC Bitcoin or buy things with non-KYC, I should say, Bitcoin. We get the idea. Yeah.
So, all right, so let's get in just a little bit to the Freedom Store and we look at BitKit, right? And I want to know, there are so many wallets out there, there's so many things out there. Why BitKit? Why should I use BitKit over maybe other wallets, or what makes it special?
Yeah. Well, you guys acted really fast with making the Freedom Store, and now that it's possible and helping people in the EU, and it's not difficult at all for any app to be able to add themselves to it.
No.
So it was a no-brainer to see it, support a fledgling project from you guys, and see if there are people that are going to use it and give it a chance. And so we do distribute our Android app, so you can install it yourself and this kind of thing directly, but you can't do that with Apple. And so this is a nice option. As far as BitKit goes, we never added KYC because we never added anything custodial, and we never added anything custodial because what's the point? Everybody else is doing that. So we make a wallet that has a Lightning node inside of it, as well as on-chain Bitcoin, so you can hold whatever amount you're comfortable with in your mobile app.
Yeah. So, and when you look at, the current thing, right? You have to talk about Bitcoin, right? So just to get it on record right here is why Bitcoin over Satoshis?
So he's referring to BIP 177.
Yeah.
And it's not the reasons that most people think, because most people aren't actually reading the BIP. They're mostly just participating in the conversations of people talking about what they don't like or scares them, would be more accurate, about the BIP. The goal of the BIP is to correct an error that was made a long time ago in calling that decimal point a decimal point at all, because Bitcoin isn't actually divisible. And so at the protocol level, the way that we actually enforce that there's only 21 million BTC is that it's an integer system. And so we actually can control the quantity of units, and thus you can only express a specific quantity inside of a UTXO, which is why there's no decimals, because you can't express them in UTXO. And so by having that dot in the middle of those 8 numbers, it causes incorrect mental modeling of how Bitcoin works. And that actually, I've noticed over the years, goes pretty deep. There are people who work on Lightning protocol that don't know this kind of thing. Most people just don't bother to look at that part of things. And so there are people that think that things on millisats and Lightning, they think that's real. They think they're actually divisions of Bitcoin. But nope, it's just a little credit system that you totally have to trust the other node to actually give you the sat, which is not a big deal because the sat isn't worth much, but it's not Bitcoin. And so the goal of the BIP is simply to show as a specification the correct way that you could display Bitcoin, which would be to not use the decimal place and just put a Bitcoin symbol in front of it. But if you remove the decimal place, now what's Bitcoin? Well, it's the base unit, right?
Yeah.
And this is the part that scares people, is calling the base unit Bitcoins, because everybody has this, devotion to the 21 million meme.
Of course.
But it's still the same amount of units, right? It's just that there was never an actual technical denomination there. It's just literally a dot. And now, as the Bitcoin price goes up, you have the other arguments that support this idea, which is unit bias is real. A lot of people feel like Bitcoin is too expensive. even if you tell them they can buy a little bit, they just feel like they're buying a little bit.
I get that every time, right? I mean, I don't know how many times I talk to my parents about Bitcoin, and every single time I would get the same thing from them is it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And this is also what also propagates and helps people believe in shitcoin, is because they go, well, I'm looking for the next Bitcoin because Bitcoin
XRP wouldn't exist if it wasn't so cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many people who say, oh, well, if XRP goes up this, and I go like, you have, Bitcoin, right? You haven't missed the boat. You haven't missed the train.
Well,
it's still here.
That's true. I still think there's plenty of upside. I don't know on what scale or what timeline, but you also have to be careful because that is speculation. So it's like, we don't know if there's another 10x in Bitcoin within this lifetime. You know what I mean? We don't know if there's
anything,
another
right?
100x within Y years. It's like, you want to be careful. And I just give my recommendation to, I don't know of any other better savings instrument in my recent history, so I continue to use this.
Yeah. So last question, and this is one I've been kind of asking everybody, is there are so many people who are, because of the price, coming to Bitcoin for the first time, and they're learning about it again. If you had one kind of piece of advice to somebody who is getting into Bitcoin for the first time, what would that be?
Everybody is full of shit and trying to take your Bitcoin, including the Bitcoiners, including the authors, including the podcasters. All of them have their own incentives. And so you have to be very, very critical, very, very selective about what you trust, like the information they say, the words, the memes, the people. That doesn't mean that Bitcoin's full of bad people. It's just that the incentives are very distorting and very difficult to behave in a wholly moral way. And so everybody's just trying to get their little edge, and everybody wants to pump everybody's bags. And this causes sometimes not the most rational or moral behavior. So just be very skeptical, be very critical. And actually, my best advice is just the one I said in the previous question. It's just simply, the only thing you need to know, the hot alpha here is just from being in Bitcoin since 2012, is simply whatever amount of money you don't need to touch for the next 5 years should be in Bitcoin, and every single bit of it. And I mean real Bitcoin, not leveraged through master shares or whatever else.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
It's
always a pleasure to see you. I'm glad we got to do this.